Back with us on the SportsMax Zone. We continue with the biggest story of the last 24 hours, and certainly the biggest story since the postponement of the Olympics last year. Certainly this is the biggest story since then, because the American sprint sensation, she's still a sensation, Sha'Carri Richardson, has tested positive for marijuana. And many have been asking, why is marijuana even on WADA's list of banned substances? Sports medicine specialist Dr. Paul Wright joins us now to explain. The great doctor, good afternoon. Welcome to the SportsMax Zone, sir.
Good to be on the program. And just to tell the listeners and the viewers, Graham is G-R-E-Y-T.
Yes, great. G-R-E-Y-T. There you go. And just before I start you off, Dr. Paul, I want to say good afternoon to the president and CEO of the West Indies Players Association, one of the foundation hosts of the SportsMax Zone, Vevel Hines, who's watching our broadcast and asking why am I on the show topless, because he doesn't recognize my Manchester United jersey. But that's another story for another time. I love that. Yeah, Doc, as a Tottenham fan, I won't start with you, but there you go. All right. So let's talk ganja, Dr. Paul. Let's talk ganja. Yeah. Let's talk the weed. Give my viewers a perspective, including history, of course, of the inclusion of marijuana on the WADA banned list and the justification for the maintenance of this substance on that list, from WADA's perspective.
All right. As you know, and everybody knows that WADA has always looked at the prevailing laws and institutions regarding the places where people take part in sports. And as we all know, marijuana was a prohibited substance in legal circles, in social circles, and became prohibited in medical circles. Long before JADCA, I used to go around the islands and do drug testing on behalf of CONCACAF, where we would drug test footballers in their own homes. We went to every island. And one of the features about the positivity rate that we were getting with marijuana is that every positive for marijuana in the Caribbean was in defensemen. They were either the back four or the goalkeeper. The forwards and midfielders never tested positive for marijuana. And that was reported to CONCACAF and to WADA. Recently, there has been a change in how people view marijuana because of the proliferation of medical marijuana. And we all know that the Jamaicans, Stanley West and so on, has done a lot of work with medical ganja, in that we do coma and different forms of vomiting and so on. It works. And in sports, it seems to have a calming influence on the people that use the drug. And you know, there are some sports where you have to be as calm as possible in order to do well. We all know that anybody can use alcohol without any problem. But in archery, if you use alcohol, you're going to be banned because of the assistance that you get from archery in counting your heartbeats and getting relaxed before you pull that string in order to let that bow go. And so what has changed. You now can use ganja, marijuana, anytime you want to, except on the day of competition. If you use marijuana or ganja on the day of competition, then the levels that are in your body, I think it's about 750 nanograms, are going to be above long-term use, which you can get, because as you know, ganja is fat-soluble and stays in the body for months, 2 to 3 months before it is excreted, even if you just use it once or 2 times. So they have very low levels, and anything over that would indicate to WADA that you use the drug on the day of competition, and they are assuming that you did it in order to gain an advantage, not as a sprinter, because I can't see how marijuana would give a sprinter an advantage, except just before the race, when you need to be as relaxed as possible. And we all know from Usain Bolt and Shelley that as they come closer to the finishing line, the more relaxed they are, the faster they seem to go, because they slow down less than the other runners. And so the rule has been changing, and right now WADA is looking at the possibility if the products of marijuana, cannabis and so on, can be used as a masking agent. There has been no reports of that so far, but we know that WADA is looking at it and has changed the rules so that you can only be banned if you test if the positive test shows that you took the drug on the day of competition, and Ms. Richardson has confessed to that and has given a reasonable reason as to why she used the ganja in order to lessen her grief and how she reacted to the death of her biological mother. And I think that is why a lot of us are understanding in what is happening. And we understand the 1 month ban instead of the 2 years or 6 months or 3 months, as it would be if you go through the usual trials and arbitration and so on.
But here's the thing, Dr. Paul, and here's why, and I can understand so many people saying this is ridiculous. If you go back to the American-led war on drugs, which has been around from the 1970s, that war on drugs was focused from 1990 onwards on marijuana offenses. So under the presidency of George Herbert Walker Bush, the first Bush who was president, marijuana became the focus of these activities. I can understand in that time and in that context, marijuana being placed on the list of banned substances and the societal impression of an elite athlete using marijuana, what message that would send to the public, especially young people, in that context. But we are in 2021, where federal laws have changed, state laws have changed. The world is embracing marijuana in a way that it wasn't even prepared to even contemplate when the war on drugs was at its peak. Why has WADA moved to keep this thing on the list of banned substances, whereas you have just articulated there is not enough definitive proof or any iota of definitive proof that it aids athletes in certain pursuits to gain a decisive advantage?
The only answer I have to that, George, is that they are still looking at the reason why would somebody who knows that marijuana, cannabis is on the ban list, use the drug on the day of competition unless they were deliberately looking at an unfair advantage. WADA is not quite sure of the unfair advantage in sprinting, where every major sprinter tells you about the importance of relaxation during the drive, when you're coming out of the drive phase, in order to go faster than the other people who are slowing down. You're slowing down less than the other people. And therefore, it is that question mark that is still in the minds of the people in WADA as to why you would know that something is banned, that you can use it before competition, and even so, you still use it on the day of competition. They're looking to see if there is an advantage that they are not able to detect now, but may detect it in the years to come. And I strongly suspect that at the next meeting of WADA, it is going to be removed from the list.
Yeah, Dr. Paul, I suspect that you looked at the interview this morning, did you?
No, I didn't get to see the interview. I'm on one of those who had to work. I have to apologize for that.
These are things we do on the job, though, Doc. Anyway, let me continue. There were points of the interview that she looked a little incoherent. She, obviously is devastated, and emotionally she spoke about it was her way of dealing with the emotional trauma that she had gone through. Something you said 4 or 5 minutes ago suggested to me that you had some sympathy for that. But your last comment to George, suggested that she may have had, ulterior motives in using it.
Well, that is the feeling now among drug testers and people who are affiliated with WADA, because you know that it is illegal. You know that you can get away with it up to the day before competition, based on the levels that they have reported that they've seen people who use the drug during competition. So why in all of this broad scenario would you use the drug on the day of competition? But as Ms. Richardson has pointed out I think for the press conference she was, when she got news of the death of her biological mother, it had affected her so much that the only way that she could calm down on the day of competition was to use the drug.
One of the stories that came out today, Doc, is that part of the conciliatory response from the U.S. authorities to her situation is because she has successfully completed a counseling program regarding her use of cannabis. How does that grab you?
That would be one of the fastest counseling programs ever in the history of drugs.
It was multiple choice, Doc.
the head of the American Anti-Drug Agency is a very, very serious man. And he has revolutionized drug testing and how we look at drugs in athletes in the United States. And he is a leader in how we look at the use of drugs in sports in countries that are taking a more conciliatory view of what is happening. Because we all know, all of us know, that there is no Olympic association anywhere in the world who wants their number one athlete to test positive. And Mr. Tigers has been really adamant that we must have a unified stand against the use of drugs in sport.
All right,
and that is why I understand the U.S. WADA response.
Yeah, Doc, we've got to leave it there, but I just want to ask you one question because I know you're as big a sports fan as you are a serious medical practitioner. Would you like to see Shakira run in the Olympics in Tokyo?
Yes.
You would?
Yes.
Why?
Because it would make the victory of the team that beat her much sweeter.
Thanks, Doc.
I think we are going to do that.
Doc, we understand that you have to run, but as you go, your final comment, who will win the St. Leger if it goes ahead at Caymanas Park on Saturday?
Further and beyond.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a good day.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Dr. Paul Wright, I think we have a little bit more time left.
Yes,
Doc had to go at 5. So let me pick your brain on this. Because what WADA has said about marijuana, when you read it, Lance, I think any reasonable person who reads it leaves having more questions than answers. And let me just go through it quickly, just 3 points for the benefit of the viewers. It says, in 2011, WADA published a paper in Sports Medicine discussing the reasons marijuana and the cannabinoids meet the criteria for being on the banned list. 3 points. 1, athletes who smoke cannabis or spice in competition potentially endanger themselves and others because of increased risk-taking, slower reaction times, and poor executive function or decision-making. 2, based on current animal and human studies as well as on interviews with athletes and information from the field, cannabis, WADA says, can be performance enhancing for some athletes and sports disciplines. 3 and last, WADA says use of illicit drugs that are harmful to health and that may have performance enhancing properties is not consistent with the athlete as a role model for young people around the world. Now, this latter point is what I was tying into the war on drugs and how drugs were vilified, demonized, marijuana was vilified, demonized, but things have changed. Yeah. So I could understand it happening then and being kept as a banned drug then, but now things are different. So, but Lance, when someone reads this, they say, hold on. Victor Conte's drug was the clear, THC. The clear, THG, beg your pardon, THG. THC is the chemical component of marijuana, beg your pardon. So THG. So the clear. We know its impact on performance. EPO, we know its impact on performance. What did Ben Johnson take? An anabolic steroid, didn't he? Stanozolol. Yes. We know its impact on performance. Definitive. Why is it that something that WADA still maintains can be performance enhancing? And none of the literature that you read can tell you that, yes, marijuana does do this for performance by enhancing it to this level. So you see why people are saying, oh, but for other serious drugs, you can definitively point to how it enhances performance. For marijuana, you're still unclear. The society's view on marijuana has changed, and yet you still maintain marijuana as a performance enhancer. It makes no sense. That's why people who support Shakira Richardson are saying that her sanction and the fact that she was found guilty of doping in the first place, Lance, ridiculous.
Yeah, it is something that is going to be debated, and well, because she has accepted that she was wrong and she knew what the rules were and flouted the rules, she has, in her own way, accepted what has happened. But I think sometimes stories like these, George, trigger deeper research and deeper debate on the topics. And, you know, as Dr. Paul just suggested, WADA is still looking at these things. And maybe in a time not too far away from now, things will change and marijuana will not be so looked at by WADA.